Gabriela, early in your childhood, you began to have exceptional experiences. How did these come about, and how did they subsequently evolve? Well, first I have to say that as a child, I did not find this unusual. I just simply had some perceptions that I didn't know how to categorize. So when I went to bed, when I was falling asleep, I simply crawled out of my body. And this just happened in a way that I couldn't control. And in those days, for me, all this felt rather unpleasant because my body felt very compact for me, very tight. And I couldn't deal with this very well. And sometimes I really felt under pressure when it was bedtime for me, so that I didn't want to go to bed. But of course, nevertheless, I went to bed, and I had to sleep anyway. For me, bedtime meant moving out of my body. And when I was finally outside my body, I felt so free, all my movements and my experiences. But when I went back into my body, I had some problems because it was so tight. But as I said, I just only had a problem with the transition. But during the day, for example, when playing, I didn't experience things like that. As a child, and when you were outside your body, did you also notice the surroundings? Yes, I also saw my surroundings. I found myself in different places. Sometimes I even visited the playground. So I felt free. I felt completely free to move, and I also had contact with spirit beings. What kind of spirit beings were they? Well, for example, my great-grandmother, who was very close to me, and then later on, a short time later, an uncle of mine had died, and after his death, I also had some contacts with him. Then you have, in a way, constantly been supervised, looked after, and sheltered when you were outside your body. Yes, I felt very sheltered. Did you have any experiences in context with these perceptions that you remember particularly well? Yes, I had such an experience after an uncle of mine had passed away. When I was about 4 years old, he had a car accident. And the night before he left, I had an awkward feeling about his going away. So I begged him not to leave and to stay at home. But of course, he left anyway. He went out, but I also shared my fear with my grandmother, namely that I had asked him to stay at home. And he then had this accident. And only afterwards, after he had this accident, I noticed that not everyone could see him. And since I was the only one who could see him, I perceived something different from the others. How often did you see your uncle in the course of your childhood? Actually, again and again, quite regularly. It was not all the time that I saw him, but sporadically. Could you as well hear and understand him when he was saying something? Yes, even then, I perceived him clearly, and I also sensed him. What did he then say to you every now and then? He was often there for me, and he accompanied me, and he had very supportive words for me, words of trust, words for my good, and also when I was frightened, for example, or words for the family. Wasn't it troublesome for you to see this uncle? No, to the contrary, it was a very nice contact. Is he still around you today? Yes, I still see him. And how did this develop further? I had these experiences again and again, and also still when I was a teenager. And I had another uncle who knew about these phenomena, and one day he gave me a book about astral travel. And this helped me a lot to better understand this special topic. Gabriela, in 2008, you had a near-death experience. Yes, this happened on the occasion of an operation which I had planned and which was then carried out, even though not completely. A uterine fibroid was to be removed in the outpatient surgery. Well, 3 days earlier, I had a dream. I dreamt that the chief senior physician came to my bed saying, "Miss Mueller, the operation has gone wrong. I'm sorry." And when I woke up in the morning, well, this dream was very clear, so that I understood every word exactly, and thus it stayed in my memory. But then I blocked out these impressions, and one day later, at dinner, I suddenly had the feeling that I was going to die. The feeling just overcame me, whereupon I burst into tears. And this feeling remained for a while, but eventually faded. And so, despite the preceding unease, I checked in to have the surgery the following day, that is, 2 days later, and the operation indeed went wrong. So everything the physician said in my dream happened in exactly the same way. Well, I was there now. I was conscious, and the whole time I was able to speak. And then, while lying in the hospital bed, I really felt very sick. And then I got worse and worse. And then I was full of pain, also inside my body, but they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they just said, well, this will pass with time. But what they didn't know was that they had made several serious mistakes which caused injury to me. So I then was taken to a monitoring room, and well, now I was lying in this monitoring room, and it was on the second day when I just simply saw a kind of fog around me. It was black and kind of dark, but not because it was dark in the room. There were lights there, even at night, but I only saw the dark, and it felt for me like finding myself above my body, but I couldn't move away. Nor can I say that I saw myself lying somewhere at that point in time. I was just simply inside this room, realizing that I was connected to my body and that I was not able to move away, but I was present in this room. And then I rang the bell for help, but it was in vain because I wasn't taken seriously at that point in time, and being in this emptiness was rather frightening for me. So in the evening before, I had prayed that I might see my brother one more time because I had the feeling that I was dying. And in fact, he was planning to come to see me the following day, which was the third day. And then a nurse came into the room in the morning, and when she had read the values on the monitor, she alerted all the responsible doctors of the hospital ward, all the nursing staff. They were all summoned to my room, plus the chief senior physician was also called at home. She had the day off, but she came a little later, and an anesthesiologist arrived, and a few other plainclothes people were there who had come first, because it was quite early in the morning. I think it was about 6 a.m. And they told me that I needed emergency surgery. Then they didn't know what was wrong with me, because my abdomen was very distended, as if I had been 7 months pregnant. But then I refused. I was still conscious, and then I said, I don't want that. And then my partner was informed, and my brother, and they came, as well as a doctor who had rounds in the hospital and who is a good surgeon, and they all came together into the room, discussing the situation, also jointly debating what could be done, finally saying, we have to do something quickly because she's in a very critical condition. And it was then decided that the rescue helicopter would be ordered because the transfer had to be done quickly. So my brother and my partner then went by car, and when the air rescue service arrived, I suddenly saw this light. Everything had become bright, and I just felt sheltered and carried. It was like a great peace around me. I was completely immersed in love, and everything was encompassed by this white light. And at that moment, my fear was gone. As well as your pain. Yes, my pain had gone also. In this near-death experience, you didn't perceive any being. No, I was just simply immersed into that light. Thereupon, you were transferred to another hospital. Yes, I was transferred to a larger hospital where I then had to have emergency surgery, and also a CAT scan was taken, but it showed nothing particular. A surgeon, after having opened my abdomen, then discovered that my intestine was about 8 inches open, that is, the large intestine, and that there was a hole in the small intestine, and also that I had severe peritonitis, so that the whole body was poisoned. How long did the healing take? The healing dragged on for years, really. The physical healing, that is, the time in the hospital, lasted only about 3 weeks. After that, I went on a health cure, and after it, I returned home, but I was still having problems, and all this went on for years. The reason for all this being that you were injured so badly during the first surgery? Yes, that's exactly how it was. Thinking back, what impact did all these experiences and the near-death experience have on your future life? Thereafter, I was much more aware of myself. My feelings were more intense. I couldn't do anything anymore, as I felt it wouldn't be good for me. For a while then, I had a part-time job, but at that point in time, I also had my practice. And that's why I quit that part-time job after I had recovered. I really wanted to focus on what I felt was right for me and what my soul was longing for. And then I just left all the other things behind and didn't pursue them any further. Can you also say that you decided on the spiritual path? Yes, that's how you can understand it. If now looking back, are you convinced of an afterlife? Yes, I absolutely am. According to my perception, the spiritual world does exist, and we are living inside this physical body, which we will be leaving afterwards in order to continue a life in the spiritual world. Gabriela, I thank you so very much for the interview. Many thanks to you, Franz.